you had to be left with your father and your brother, both psychopaths, both predators, both pedophiles.
Evil.
Yeah. Sent from the devil.
Yeah.
And so we're now talking into your young adolescence, or not even adolescence, really 12 years old, when you'd experience the trafficking to some of these high profile groups that people wouldn't really even think engage in this sort of behavior.
Yeah.
You know, you'd witness things happen to other children in that environment. Do you remember from the age of, because I assume that would have been around 12, so we're getting now more towards, you know, the ages of 13, and, you know, you mentioned there were other people involved that viewers might not think would even engage in this. Do you remember kind of, was there an escalation after that? Did it continuously get worse after that point?
Yeah, I think so. What might be useful for the audience to know is that the 18 months, which is what that memoir On Angel's Wings is based on, was the worst time of my life. And
from the ages of
11 to 12 and a half, when I got left in the family home with those two sociopaths. And the at the age of 12 and a half, I think it's why I'm alive today, to be honest, school had a half day. My father must not have known that, because I came home at lunchtime and I could hear laughing down the hallway, and it was a woman's voice, and I thought, what's that? And I walked in, there's my father in bed with a woman, and I just panicked and ran, and I ran to my mother's house. And the reason I was so traumatised by that was because I'd been led to believe, in amongst all of the horror, that I was my father's mistress, that I was his wife, that I was the one that would sleep with him at night, and in effect, you know, I was his partner. So to see this felt like a betrayal, because on the one hand, we've got this man who's happy to sell me, lease me, rent me out, but on the other, he also wanted me with him and sleeping with him. So can you imagine the confusion when, as a 12-year-old, I didn't have the cognition to understand what was going on, so I turned and ran up to my mother's house, which is about 5 kilometres away, and I was sobbing and couldn't breathe and everything, and she said, what's wrong, which was never asked. And I said, he's in bed with someone. And I thought that job was mine. 12 and a half.
What did she say to that?
Right, so she rang. She ignored that little last bit, of course, because how could you leave me in the house to start with? Anyway, she rang the local priest, escalated it, and got hold of the Archbishop of the Diocese of Auckland, and he said to her, apparently, get her out of the house. It's not right for her to be there with an adulterer.
What a comment on the views of the society that you were in at the time.
So okay to be trafficked, abused, terrorised, tortured, starved, beaten, that's all okay, but not okay to be living in the home of an adulterer.
This priest was he also involved with this, or?
No, but that was the canon laws back in the day, you see. So anyway, so she decided, okay, well, I better follow what the church says. So came down, took me down the next day and said, we've got to get your stuff out. I'm not coming in with you. You need to tell your father yourself. He was the biggest, scariest monster in my life, and I had to face him alone and say I didn't want to be there anymore. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
At the age of 13?
12 and a half.
And how did that conversation go?
He was furious, and she wouldn't get out of the car and come in with me, so I had to face him alone. But I got out. She drove me up the road, and I started crying. I was laughing. I said, yeah, I'm so excited, Mummy, that's so good, blah, blah, blah. And she said, I don't know what you're so excited about. You'll be going back every second weekend. Can I tell you, and people struggle with this, that was worse for me than having to stay in the house with him, because for 12 out of 14 days, apart from school holidays, which was half each, custody each, 12 out of 14 days, I was safe. But then from somewhere deep inside, I had to find the courage and the resilience to try and manage what he would do to me for those 2 days, because you can imagine the work I had to do.
Really?
Yeah.